how are you going to care for the spiritual life that's been given to you at baptism and the fulfillment of your spiritual life has been promised to you, which is heaven? There is a very tight and a very close relationship between your spiritual life and heaven. We can, to use other terminology, would say between grace and glory. If we are faithful to God's grace here on this earth, we then will receive glory in heaven. Our Blessed Mother at Fatima, she comes to bring God's grace so that we can enjoy God's glory in heaven. He who values heaven values the spiritual life. And that's why our Blessed Mother, specifically also at Fatima, that's why she emphasizes so much devotion to Jesus in the Holy Eucharist and in the Holy Mass, and devotion to her, specifically to her Immaculate Heart. She's doing the same thing. She's not doing anything different than what we just heard in the dream to Don Bosco. Don Bosco's dream with the two great columns, Jesus in the Holy Eucharist, the Immaculate Virgin Mary. This is also central to what Our Lady of Fatima comes to teach us, so that she can show us the path to heaven. Colossians chapter 3, verses 1 and 2, quote, "Seek the things that are above. Mind the things that are above, not the things that are upon the earth." And the two greatest things that are above are Jesus and Mary. Cultivating your spiritual life means, first of all, striving for heaven. Knowing that God has promised you heaven in baptism, knowing also that everything our Blessed Mother is doing is, she's doing it to show you the path to heaven. You have to keep your eyes and your heart fixed on heaven. And our Blessed Mother, especially at Fatima, is a great example of that. She's the woman from heaven. She's clothed, we might say, with heaven. She's pointing the way to heaven. She promises heaven. Even before, also revealing all the dangers to our soul and the reality of hell. She promises heaven to the shepherd children. She tells them at the very beginning, I come from heaven. In order to cultivate your spiritual life, you have to remind yourself of this constantly. I have to get to heaven. The Blessed Virgin Mary wants me to get to heaven. She's showing me the path to heaven. I'm going to pray my rosary faithfully because I want to be in heaven. Because this is the path through the storms in order to get to the safe harbor. Matthew chapter 13, verses 45 to 46, quote, "The kingdom of heaven is like to a merchant seeking good pearls, who when he had found one pearl of great price, went his way and sold all that he had and bought it." Close quote. This is how much we must value heaven. And here our Lord himself is teaching us the value of heaven when he's comparing, he's talking about the kingdom of heaven. He's talking about heaven. And he's telling us this is so valuable that you have to be willing to sell everything that you have for heaven. Take this to heart. Keep this fixed in your heart. One of the things that I see often among the young people is they're willing to, quote unquote, sell. They're willing to sell their Catholic faith in order for, let's say, a person that they supposedly love and are loved by, who isn't Catholic, who isn't practicing their Catholic faith. And yet, what I see rarely, I've seen it, it's a lot rarer, the young Catholic that's willing to sell everything, even let's say a very beautiful friendship or a person that he or she loves very much and is loved by, a possible, let's say, future marriage partner, but willing to sell that for the pearl of great price that is heaven. But this is why it's so important that we work to cultivate our spiritual life and to always value above everything heaven. Because if you value heaven, you also have to value your spiritual life. Remember, they're very closely connected. Your spiritual life will not only make you happy here on earth, but it's going to determine your eternal reward. It's going to determine the merit that you gain forever in heaven. And so, if you value heaven as the pearl of great price, it's worth selling everything on this earth for, same thing goes for your spiritual life. We have to be ready to really work hard at cultivating our spiritual life, because the ultimate reward is heaven, and it's something eternal. And so, consequently, our devotion to Jesus in the Holy Eucharist, devotion to the Blessed Virgin Mary, we can say two great columns, two great foundations of our spiritual life. We cannot cultivate our spiritual life well apart from this. Devotion to Jesus in the Holy Eucharist, devotion to the Blessed Virgin Mary. Therefore, these two are also, we can also talk about them as those pearls of great price. Because those are the columns that are going to take us to heaven. Cultivating your spiritual life means be willing to sell all that you have and all that the world offers you for these precious pearls. There is a lot to be said about how to cultivate your spiritual life, obviously. In this talk, I want to focus just most especially on one aspect, because my hope is that if we zero in on one, that hopefully all of you will make efforts to work on this. And if you work on this, it really will do great wonders. It's like a first step. It doesn't mean that we're going to exhaust everything that we can do to cultivate our spiritual life, because there's obviously much to be done. But this is a very important foundation, and that is order and regularity. Remember this, order and regularity. You have to have a certain plan, and you have to carry that out faithfully on a regular basis. So many times we fail in this, and that's why so many souls don't make progress in the spiritual life. Order and regularity.